Wow, it is bright.
Yep.
All right, let's talk hardware. What else would you want to be doing at 5:50 on a Tuesday?
At least it's not Saturday. Yeah.
Quick round introductions.
Quick round of intros. John already called me out. I'm the general manager at Intel of our wearable device group. That's smart glasses, AR, wrist-worn devices, smartwatches, connected watches, whatever definition you want to use. And I love the space, so happy to be here.
Tom Anelli, I'm an analyst at IDC. My group covers everything from PCs to tablets, thin clients, wearables, and smartphones, and we recently launched an augmented and virtual reality service.
Tom Calloway, I'm Advanced Programs Manager at Thales. We're a big French technology group. We solve motion tracking for pilots, Air Force pilots. We're flying on F-16, a whole bunch of aircrafts, as well as helicopters in Europe and South Korea. And we've been a motion tracking business for about 20 years. We were a startup out of MIT right here.
So you guys are doing demos tomorrow, right?
We have some demos right over there. You can't fly. So we do have a chair where you can look through the see-through display and pretend you're a pilot, but it's a little unwieldy for this. So. Thank you.
Matt Camerite, I'm here with Daiquiri. I've been with them for the better part of 4 years now. We make Daiquiri Smart Helmet, Daiquiri Smart Glasses as of a few weeks ago, and an automotive heads-up display that's in 540,000 vehicles currently.
Very cool.
So it's probably one of the most educated audiences for AR, short of maybe AWE, and even I think in many contexts this is an even better cross-section of our industry versus just a bunch of hardware geeks like us filling a convention center. Maybe we open it up to the audience, because I'm pretty sure they're going to come in and give us a hook in about 12 minutes. So,
7.5.
Yeah, 7.5. Big questions from the audience.
Previous question about essentially standardization of the hardware. Sure, to Intel's interest, there's basically you have to basically have essentially interoperable standards that allow for different devices to bring the type of commodity level volume.
So is that a question or statement? I was trying to. Do I like standards or?
Which are the standards is actually important for us hardware developers?
All right, so yeah, I'll paraphrase. I like standards when they accelerate an industry. I don't like them when they hold them back. And I don't like them when they conflict with other standards. I don't like standards wars. There's friendly co-opetition in a space. I think it's okay to compete, and I think a rising tide will raise all ships, to use the metaphor. Where I don't like standards is when someone comes out and says, this is the de facto, and if you don't do this, you can't be supported in an operating system, in a device class, and what have you. And I've done a number of them. So then the question I asked about standards was really around that. Is there an accelerant that you can put in place that starts to give people a commonality of discussion and language so that things start working together better and everything isn't, Amish craftsmanship and you've got to hand build the stuff to get a full solution? Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll open it up to some of the others.
Yeah, I would agree. I think anywhere you can develop economies of scale or repeatability and kind of take things that have been done once, and we've heard this many times today, but take problems that have been solved and really migrate those solutions so that we all stand on the shoulders of giants versus solving the same problem over and over and over again. I think they do a tremendous service. They're a great language, but yeah, when they're not restrictive, and especially when they don't restrict commerce.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't have much to add there, although I do think some of the comments that were made earlier today about understanding what a device can really do and what is maybe being put out on the web as what a device can do using Hollywood magic. I think standards are one of those things that will come along at some point, and knowledgeable people will be like, the standards upon which this is built, that's not what that looks like. And I think that'll be useful.
I will say from the motion tracking world, the system output standards, they're really not there. What's the motion tracking accuracy of the HoloLens? millimeter precision. They just throw at numbers. So as a company that sells motion tracking solutions into other people's applications, we just spun off a surgical AR group and so forth, kind of like breaking new ground here, saying here's like the drift per meter distance traveled. You go 100 meters, you within a tenth of a meter. What's the wander? What's the jitter? And I think you really, until you have standards and you can look at those numbers, you'll see a lot of Hollywood videos and you won't really know what you're looking at until you have them. So I'm in favor of standards, any standard that not just one company benefits from.
Yeah, and that provides apples to apples too. I think that's where you get into a lot of trouble, is where you've got different languages being spoken on the same topic, and then everyone's describing things in sort of the most beneficial possible terms.
For them.
Yeah.
Yes, question here.
The industry is in an
Hey, so just to interject here real quick. So we're also videoing this, and so when you guys are talking, use the mic. We're gonna save questions to the end, but if it's a question that you guys really, really want these guys to ask,
let's keep it interactive. This is good. Nobody wants to hear us just blabber on about the shit
So it
we
seems like
build.
the industry is at an important point right now. We've got Daiquiri doing its own sort of underlying OS layer. We've got Intel with Project Alloy doing some kind of large ecosystem underlying architecture. You've got Microsoft doing its thing. You've got Magic Leap doing God knows what Magic Leap's going to be doing. You've got folks developing on Android. You see where I'm going with the question, right? So my concern is that we're going to have so many different hardware OS layers in this very sort of nascent economy, in this nascent industry, that it may confuse the consumer, and it may befuddle developers. Do you guys share that concern?
I think at first it's a war against latency. It's getting close enough to the silicon that you're able to address the sensors, you're able to do the sensor fusion, you're able to achieve level of quality and a level of latency that works for people. And then from there on up, I think it's anybody's game. I think it becomes much more democratized, and you want developer tools that are friendly to a lot of different people. But I think what you saw was a bunch of people take stabs at how deep they were going to have to go, how close, and people kept realizing they had to go deeper because the perceptual threshold for especially optical see-through augmented reality is really, really tight. It's sub 10 milliseconds.
I don't disagree with your sentiment. I think there's been a lot of jokes today about AR versus VR versus mixed versus merged. And I understand why everybody is trying to put a stake in the ground, but I do think that adds another layer of complexity that we will have to sort out. I've been impressed with a lot of the work that Microsoft has done, particularly around HoloLens, but I think the holographic processing platform is confusing to me, and this is what I do for a living, is try to understand platforms as they're rolled out. And when we talk about the tethered Windows 10 VR experience that will come later this year, to me that feels very much like VR, but Microsoft wants to call it the holographic platform. And so I think you add layers on top of what is already a bit of a gold rush, because everybody wants to be there first and own that valuable piece of land.
I would say that the confusion for consumers and so forth isn't necessarily at the hardware level, it's at the levels above that. Internet of Things, do I have an app for each thing? Or one ecosystem, goes back to the first question, or we've solved the latency problems for certain applications in construction we're getting into now. And so once you solve that at the hardware level, my company, for example, doesn't generate content. What's the content look like? Who makes the content? Many AR applications I've seen over the last 11 years I've been in the space haven't taken off because you can show a great demo, but it takes an engineer time to develop content for that demo. And it works great for the demo, but wait, I want content all over my, my construction field. I want,
Yeah, they're 11 hours and 45 minutes of my shift. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there you go. So I do think it's a problem right now, but I think, just like smartphones and so forth, every platform before it, eventually it's going to fix itself, it's evolution.
I'm not concerned because, as we all know, our future is going to be fueled by rainbows and unicorns. So we got that going for us.
Poor guys.
But I think when you mix consumer and most of the products, and I'll use air quotes on products that you've rattled off, it's a non sequitur, because a lot of the platforms, the products, whatever you want to call them, that you named, are largely developer platforms. I think as an industry, We've got a heavy tech influence here. We've got a heavy tech influence in the Bay Area. We've got hotspots around the world, as you saw from John's map. We confuse the fact that we use our own tech, that we're consumers. We're not the consumers. Consumers are the people that were playing Pokemon Go that I talked about that don't know what augmented reality is. And we have not built, as an industry, a true consumer platform yet. The closest one that I would say would be spectacles. I think Snap nailed their consumers. They look at the need that they're doing. Now, 99% of the people at this conference would probably scream that those aren't augmented reality, that a simple filter over an image does not constitute AR. And we can have that debate, and that's probably a different panel. So I would sort of say that what we're doing right now is necessary but not sufficient. We really haven't got to the design points that an average person is going to pick that up, put it on, immediately see the value. We haven't gotten to the maturity in the developer platforms, in the software infrastructure, to really make it seamless and make it invisible, like Amber talked about. So maybe the 5th one of these, the 10th one of these, we'll all be celebrating, mass adoption, and we'll have, instead of forecasts of millions of units, we'll be counting millions of units.
I'm not sure the consumer really cares ultimately, too. Once it hits a threshold of working sufficiently. I mean, people called Android droid, referring to one specific, handset from one maker that was running that operating system. Even when they sort of peripherally know what an operating system is or what their phone is running, they just care if it works and if it hits a level of quality. And I think you're exactly right. The developer challenge and what we've got a couple of years worth of effort to put in here is in erasing that, so they never have to think about what the enabling technology is.
I will say, over the holidays, I spent an inordinate amount of time in HTC Vive, and was really struck by how
How'd your wife
complicated.
feel about that?
She made fun of me constantly.
Took you all last year to set up, and then
Exactly. My dining room is now a VR arcade.
my wife took mine down.
But the thing that I found interesting was somebody who really kind of understands all of it. I consistently found myself not understanding if I was in an app or if I was on the platform. And I agree it gets sorted out, but if early adopters can't figure it out, it adds years to the sorting out process. So if my friends look to me to explain to them about VR and then about AR, and I say, hold off, it's not ready for prime time yet, because I don't know how to work it, and I do this for a living, that's a problem.
If early adopters can't figure it out,
Right.
consumers have no chance. It goes back to the point that it's going to be a problem early on. I have full confidence it'll sort itself out whether we want it to or not.
I do think, just to wrap this point, you made a comment about Windows holographic. That I do think there is a bit of a meet in the middle. That these truly higher-end platforms that we're talking about, thousands of dollars, and they weigh 2 pounds and they run for 90 minutes before you got to charge them, are a necessary forcing function to get developer creativity focused on them. And then I think a low-end integration into the basic technology that every person on the planet is consuming, and moving those capabilities up, and eventually there will be some meet in the middle, and it'll be the companies that target those consumers with very specific needs and find unique ways to communicate. It won't be because somebody put up an AR billboard out on 128 and everybody runs to to Amazon and starts ordering it out of their car. So we probably got time for one more question before they give us the hook. Let's go to the back. And we will keep talking until they literally hook us off the stage. But
All right. So I'm curious, in your opinion, onto this usability, what are the major obstacles to getting very usable headsets in terms of weight, form factor, battery life, and what do you see as the path to overcoming those in terms of time span? Are there things that we don't have yet that we need to have happen before we get there?
yes, yes, and yes.
All right, then.
Everything.
All of those factors. I don't think there's one dial that you can turn. I think form factor is paramount, but if form factor compromises battery life and functionality below an acceptable level, then then you've built an expensive hot pair of glasses.
If you look at each category, though, there's a glide path. And the glide path for some of those is good, and for some of them it's non-existent or middling. You know, batteries are going to get lighter. You know, they're going to continue to produce, you know, on a curve. It may not be the curve that we would want, but if we don't start to get intentional about I/O, if we don't start to get intentional about experience design, solving, you know, this question of what sort of app or desktop paradigms are going to carry over and which ones we should leave behind. You know, if we don't intentionally solve those problems, they won't solve themselves.
You guys just did something interesting. Do you want to talk about the glasses that you showed at CES relative to the helmet and what you did there? Because
Sure.
I think that's a really good case for the point he's making.
Yeah, I think it's really a step along that progression. So a few years ago, when we saw the first round of AR devices and realized that they weren't going to really be up to the challenge of the workplace sort of applications that we focus on, we said, what device would do that? And you know, it was really a helmet form factor that allows us to balance all of those things, achieve full shift battery life, pack all the sensors in, and then you know, the price point didn't matter as much to that market because they were willing to pay for the capability. Now, in you know, just 12 months from that point in time, we're able to put all of that into glasses, but with a tether. So you've got compute and battery on your hip. You know, now give it another 6 to 12 months, and that piece disappears. But in that same sort of progression, you know, we're getting all of the usability data, we're getting all the interface design, working on some really interesting things on the I/O front for, you know, what that's going to look like, knowing that that's the future that we're headed towards, which is, you know, self-contained and very light and gets out of your way.
The human factors people today would tell you, you know, the experts would tell you it's not there yet. Just like you said, I think we all know that. Anything that's out there today, Loomis we use that in aircraft and so forth. It's expensive technology. I think the displays need work, the motion tracking
We're trying to buy
apparatus.
enough that they get cheaper.
Yeah, we have our own things. They're funded by Chinese now and so forth. It's getting interesting. But really at every level, the computational density could go up. I could use a petaflop, sure. Then deep learning and AI companion and so forth, it's just going to keep getting better. I think motion tracking, our latest stuff, I think within 5 years, you're going to see a single passive camera and an IMU can solve it. The vision inertial navigation, these guys are working on as well. It really works great, and you can build up maps. So you really need to do that. You need to get rid of the apparatus, a small camera, a small inertial chip, computational. The human factors people say don't put computation on the head if you can help it. So having a tether, maybe something strapped around the neck or something, and not having a computer weighing down. It all has to improve. Fortunately, everywhere we look, every component there is improving exponentially. The display technology is a bit choppy, like sudden improvements, but it's all coming very quickly.
Yeah, the last thing I would add to that is there will be a continuum, right? So we're basically talking about high-end compute moving from the desktop to the notebook to the smartphone to your body. But there will be AR solutions that don't need that amount of compute, that do very simple jobs that you could go buy today or in a year. I think your spectacles example, it's a good one. So there will be a spectrum and understanding that for some people, a very simple device with limited compute but a good network connection is the ideal AR device.
Yep.
All right, and with that, I think we're going to wrap it up here with Hardware One. Give these guys a hand.